want to start this session with a question. What does professional development look like in today's arts ecosystem? And what should it look like in the future? Professional development for artists and arts administrators is not a new concern. For a long time, state arts agencies and regional arts organizations have invested in workshops, conferences, technical assistance, mentorship, cohort programs, and many other approaches that have been designed to help artists and arts organizations build their skills and strengthen their work. However, the environment has changed considerably. Artists and arts workers are navigating different career paths and economic realities. Organizations are dealing with changing workforce needs, new technologies, evolving relationships with communities, and significant shifts in how people create, participate in, and support the arts. And those changes raise some important questions. Are the professional development models we've relied on still meeting the needs of the field? Where are they working well? Where might there be gaps? And are there new ways we should be thinking about professional development? Those are really the questions at the heart of today's conversation. And I want to emphasize the word conversation because this session isn't intended to present one model or tell you what professional development should look like. Instead, we want to use the experience and knowledge in this virtual room as a discussion point. Across state arts agencies and regional arts organizations, there are a range of approaches to this work. Some have programs that have been operating successfully for many years. Others are experimenting with new approaches. And some of you may be reconsidering your entire role in supporting professional development in your arts communities. All of those perspectives are useful and welcome today. Before we truly begin, again, I just want to acknowledge a relevant issue. We know that many states and regionals are navigating federal guidelines that are pertaining to allowable support for individual artists' professional development. We want to be clear that eligibility and interpretation of federal rules are not what we will be talking about today. The NEA statute restricts how federal funds can be used for artists, but there are exceptions available to professional development activities. To find out if a program you have in mind is allowable, it's important to check in with the NEA. And for state and regions, Laura Garitiano in the Partnerships Office is the best person to call with any questions about your particular program. So while we acknowledge these potential limitations, we don't want that to restrict the larger conversation about what artists' needs are, what effective professional development could look like in the future, and anything else that might arise in this conversation. So for today, I encourage us all to think broadly. Rather than beginning with what are we allowed to fund, let's think about beginning with what do artists and arts organizations actually need? Then we can think about the tools, partnerships, resources, and funding mechanisms that might help us respond to those needs. One of the opportunities I hope we can explore today is how states and regions might learn from one another, and where collaboration could allow us to do things that might be difficult for any one organization to do alone. And that brings us to our presenters and facilitators for today. Sarah Luitas, and I just mispronounced your name, Sarah, I'm so sorry, and Sarah Branch from Mid-Atlantic Arts will begin sharing findings about what artists and arts workers are telling us they want and need when it comes to professional development. From there, we'll help turn the lens towards our own work and look at what Sarah's agencies and regional arts organizations are currently offering, sharing examples from across states and regions and identifying some of the approaches that seem particularly promising. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to the two Sarahs. Sarah?
Yeah, thanks so much, Eric. And hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here with you. We're going to introduce ourselves now. We're actually, if you can believe it, three Sarahs from Mid-Atlantic Arts. As we're introducing ourselves, we invite you to share your name and where you're calling in from, as well as your state or regional arts agency in the chat. As I'm pulling up the slide deck, for access purposes, I'll also let you know that any text included on today's slides will be spoken out loud. There are some decorative photos included, but those photos do not directly correlate with any of the information being shared. So let me go ahead and pull up our screen, and I'll say that my name is Sarah Luitas. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm a white woman with short brown hair and a white sort of scoop neck blouse on today. I'm based on Piscataway and Susquehannock lands known as Baltimore, Maryland, and I'll pass to Sarah Branch.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here with all of you today. My name is Sarah Branch. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a mixed race black woman with short curly hair and bangs, glasses, and a floral patterned shirt. And I'm calling in from the homelands of the Lenni Lenape peoples of Lenape-Hoking, also known as Philadelphia. And I'll pass it to the last Sarah, Sarah T.
Hi everyone, I'm the third Sarah. I'm Sarah Tune. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a black woman with mildly messy aqua and aqua blue and black twists right now. I wear glasses and I'm wearing a beige top. I'm also based on Piscataway and Susquehannock lands, known as Baltimore as well, though I am currently on the land of the Sora and the Kiowa peoples in North Carolina. Uh, we work at Mid-Atlantic Arts, one of the six regional arts organizations. You're likely familiar with the USRIO structure, but if you'd like a refresher, usregionalarts.org, and I'll put that in the chat in a second, um, is a great resource to learn about us and the grants and programs that we offer. On this screen, you can see a map outlining the six regional arts organizations and the geographies each RIO covers.
In this session, we're going to talk about what professional development means today and what it could mean in the future. We hope you'll leave this session with some concrete ideas for how you might think about professional development in your work as at a state arts agency or regional arts organization, but also how you think about professional development in relationship to your own work and practice. First, we'll talk about what we mean when we say professional development. Then Sarah Branch and I will share takeaways from some research we've done over the past year at Mid-Atlantic Arts on ways our constituents think about professional development.
And the rest of the session will be more conversational. So we'll ask to hear some examples from the group of how professional development programs work at your state arts agency or regional arts organization. And if you do offer professional development as its own program or part of another program, we'd really love to hear what's working well for you and where there might be some room for growth.
After that, we'll go into breakout rooms with two prompts. How else might your state arts agency or RAO think about professional development? And what do you need as an employee of a state arts agency or a regional arts organization to advance your own professional development? We'll come back to share a few examples from our breakout room conversations, and then at the very end, we'll invite you to drop any great professional development resources that you know of in the chat. We'll collect those and send them around after the session along with synthesized notes from each breakout room.
So to get started, what do we mean when we say professional development? We want to recognize that professional development is a concept loaded with problematic white supremacy culture values. The word professional conjures up ideas about a right way to dress and act, and that is not what we're here to talk about today. One quote from our research, anonymized for privacy, that speaks to this is up on the screen, and I'll read it now. So sometimes it feels forced that people in Puerto Rico have to pursue professional development opportunities because they're considered not professional enough. Changing the title to something like strengthening skills or continued learning would be better. So we offer that as a framing for how we're going into thinking about what PD can be.
And we'd like to invite you to think about this less of what certification should I get and more of how does the work that I do or that my state arts agency or regional arts organization supports bolster artists and arts organizations in my geographic community. And thinking about where do I want to be investing my time and attention to grow personally so that I'm of service to the people and the organizations that I care about. So, in this conversation, we really want to encourage expansive thinking, what we've talked about from the start, about the definition of professional development, and also invite in other language to describe what PD can mean and can be as well.
Now we'll share some big picture findings from the research we've conducted over the past year at Mid-Atlantic Arts surrounding professional development. And as an overview, this research was driven by a need to evaluate and update existing programs across various portfolios. It included both publicly and privately funded programs at Mid-Atlantic Arts, and 7 of our colleagues were involved. We totaled over 49 hours of one-on-one stakeholder conversations, along with one group conversation at Maryland State Arts Summit recently. And we won't go into a ton of detail about who participated for the sake of time, but we wanted to share some data that, we had people from all 10 states and jurisdictions participating in this process from the Mid-Atlantic Arts Funding region. And within these conversations, we spoke with performing arts presenters, as well as advocacy, community service, and grant-making organizations, as well as artists across a wide range of disciplines. The data reflects participants in the 49 hours of conversations that we had, not including the participants in the conversation at Maryland Arts Summit, where we did not collect data about their individual artist practice.
So now we'd like to share some of our key takeaways from these conversations. So here are the primary barriers that were noted by participants as restrictive to engaging with various professional development opportunities. First and foremost, I think unsurprisingly, is time. Time was mentioned as a barrier for almost all participants. They also talk about cost, either high cost for an individual or lack of professional development allowance as an employee of an organization. They spoke about travel or housing expenses needed during a professional development experience, as well as coverage of existing responsibilities or expenses while participating in a PD. This could include work responsibilities, child care, elder care, or other. Time spent researching opportunities and writing applications to participate in professional development was also noted as a barrier, as it takes time away from creative practice. Having no time or resources to vet opportunities and having difficulty parsing through what may actually be worth pursuing. And finally, a lack of confidence to apply in the first place, especially for folks who have had limited access to professional development opportunities throughout their career.
So we found that key takeaways about what participants were looking for in professional development opportunities fell broadly into 4 categories, and the first 2 are here on this slide. So one category was personal and community care. Some examples of that were connection and mentorship with peers, and within that included authentic networking, potentially connecting with future collaborators, and hearing how others have succeeded in their field. There's also an emphasis on lifelong learning rather than a one and done opportunity. I loved this quote of cultivating healthy stillness. And what that person was describing that others also reflected in their answers was a desire to build in a live work rhythm, if you will, that allowed for not just go, 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 but reflection, analysis, moments of stillness to really take in their work and not just always drive forward all the time, and then support during major life and career transitions. Another bucket, if you will, of takeaways was around the need for technical and professional skill. So that could include early career support for folks entering the field for the first time, appropriate resources for developing new work, support for entrepreneurship for artists, engaging with their work and that entrepreneurial identity, travel support for conferences or otherwise out of reach opportunities. This was a big one, subscription services or ongoing expenses that, don't often get honored in grant applications, but are real hard expenses that artists and arts workers incur. Embracing AI responsibly, financial literacy, and measuring personal growth.
And then the last 2 categories included storytelling, sharing, and promoting. This includes both platforms for the artistic work and also social media support. And finally, addressing systemic issues, including maintaining a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout work, advocacy skills, healthcare resources, organizing for economic and political power as artists, and equitable internship opportunities. So now we're going to go ahead and open this up for conversation with the group, and we're going to start by getting a better sense of what your state arts agency or regional arts organization currently offers to the field. So Eric will help me out in a moment and open a poll, and we're going to ask each of you to respond to 3 prompts that are now on the screen. So the first is, my state arts agency or a regional arts organization currently provides professional development programs for artists and/or arts organizations. Please respond with a yes or no. Second prompt is, my state arts agency or regional arts organization currently provides professional development funds for staff learning. Again, yes or no. And the third and final prompt is, my state arts agency or regional arts organization is interested in growing its professional development offerings for constituents, with the response options of yes, and it's a priority, yes, but it's not a priority, and not at this time. You should see the poll on your screen. Please take a moment to answer those 3 prompts, and then we'll take a look at the results. Okay, we'll give it one more moment. A couple more folks, go ahead and finish your poll responses. Okay, we have a 91% participant rate. I think we can go ahead and close the poll and look at the results. Okay. It looks like for our first question, my state arts agency, RAO, currently provides professional development for artists and/or arts organizations. 91% yes. Wonderful. Second question, currently providing professional development funds for staff learning. Again, we see 91%. That is wonderful. The third question, I think, is the juiciest. My state arts agency or RAO is interested in growing its professional development offerings for constituents. 65% say yes, and it's a priority. 31% say yes, but it's not a priority. And 4% at not at this time. That is a really helpful scan of what's going on for those of you in the room with us. Thank you so much for participating in that poll. Okay.
Yeah, it's really, really great to hear, and a great transition into our next question for you. And I'm actually gonna, well, first I'll show it to you on the screen, but this conversation is asking, how does your state arts agency or regional arts organization offer professional development to the field? We see in that poll that about 90% of folks who answered in the room right now do offer that kind of support. And so it would be really great in this moment to hear from those of you who do about what that looks like. How does that play out? And what's working well within those programs? And where might there be room to grow? So with that, I'm going to stop sharing now, and we'll just be together in the virtual space. I'll take a beat and ask for folks to consider whether they would be willing to share a bit about what their state arts agency or regional arts organization does in the way of creating professional development opportunities for their constituents. Or if you'd like, if there's a novel way that your state arts agency or regional is creating PD opportunities for staff, that could also be really interesting to hear. So if folks are interested, I'll invite folks to raise their hand, or you can just jump off mute and we'll go from there.
You can also feel free to use the chat, and we'll read what you write in the chat aloud.
As you're considering, another potential prompt could be that if you're interested in growing your professional development opportunities, we are going to get into that, a bit more in our next sections, but did anything resonate or feel surprising or line up with what you are thinking about from the research Sarah B. and I just shared? All right, lifting up in the chat from Rebecca Martin, Idaho, that Idaho stole this idea from Artswa. A link in the chat there. And Nisa in Rhode Island says, we will be offering PD for organizations and artists via Lifetime Arts and Creative Aging. That's really exciting. I do think these are great examples, but I also wonder, Sarah, if we want to, get into a juicier moment and take ourselves into the breakout rooms now so folks can connect on a
Yeah,
more personal level.
absolutely.
So, and lifting up before we do that, Christopher says in the chat, hi, New Jersey State Council on the Arts has 2 series of PD, making it public for emerging public artists and the business of being an artist for working New Jersey artists. The examples are rolling in and definitely keep dropping them in the chat.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so as Sarah L. mentioned, we're gonna go ahead and go into some breakout rooms in a moment to give us some time for small group discussion. So we do have 2 questions for you to talk about while you are in there. So we want to talk about what professional development opportunities would you like to see your state arts agency or regional arts organization develop for the field? And the second question is, what professional development opportunities do you need for your practice? So there will be a Sarah or a NASA staff person in each breakout room to help with taking notes. And these notes are going to be collected after the end of this session. We'll share them with everyone. When we return to the large group, we're going to again prompt for some large group sharing. So again, we'll ask people to go off mute and share a little bit about what they took away from their small group conversation, or you can also use the chat. So I'm going to drop those questions in the chat and I'll have Eric move us into our breakout rooms.